like, I don't know, Whip's a really powerful card.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of groupthink when it comes to these lists. People trust the pedigree, but that doesn't necessarily mean that 75 should be set in stone.
Videl Ross is going to fire off a Thoughtseize. He's going to go down to 18. You see the grip there. He's got a Judge's Familiar, does Schneider, along with a Rapid Irization, a Tidebinder Mage, a Jace, and an Island. So, not the most powerful hand in the world, but he does get to get off to a pretty fast start here.
Yeah, Andrew's going to be, presumably not casting Jace for a while. I know Thassa in hand. Those are two very important tools for beating mono black. Yeah. So, he's going to try to win the beatdown path, which his hand is also not that well set up to do, especially after this Thoughtseize.
It kind of in a sticky situation if Tidebinder Mage is going to go because he kind of needs lands and spells at this point. He's going to start by drawing a Frostburn Weird, so that's actually a pretty good start because he can play Cloudfin Raptor this turn. He can play Judge's Familiar, evolve Cloudfin Raptor, attack for 1, then the next turn, play Frostburn Weird, and get in for more damage in the air. So, there's your Raptor, there's your attack for 1. Videl Ross is going to go down to 17 as we're underway here in round number 5.
Your larger point is true, though. He is going to want to get that Jason to play, so he needs lands and spells to make that happen. And this is a really rough Thoughtseize for Andrew here.
No, I think for a moment there he thought about casting Rapid Hybridization maybe on one of his own creatures.
Yep. But that allows Jose to just take the Frostburn Weird, so he gets to evolve once either way.
Would you fire off the Rapid Hybrid maybe on the end step on the Judge's Familiar?
No, because Judge's Familiar is actually fairly good against mono black. They have a lot of 2 and 3 mana spells, so.
Okay. It would be aggressive, as Videl Ross is going to go down to 13. Schneider's going to pass the turn. Videl Ross does know his hand. He's got a Jace. He's got a Rapid Hybridization. As you do see the Captain America fan there on your right. He's got a Temple of Deceit in his hand. Does have an Underworld Connections. You also find a Hero's Downfall. But as you mentioned, Hero's Downfall not great because of Judge's Familiar right now.
Yeah, the mono blue deck in this matchup I feel really needs to get some sort of card advantage engine online, and Thassa counts as that as well. It's just too hard to beat all the removal when you're not backing it up with anything. And, Andrew's draw right now is just these creatures in play.
Rapid Hybrid, you're going to take down Judge's Familiar. Cloudfin Raptor is going to evolve into a 2-3, which means that we're going to see an attack here for 5 on Schneider's turn. We know that for sure. The rest we don't know. If he does draw a land, of course Jace will come into play, but he's kind of in the inevitable situation right now where a land or a spell is ideal.
Yeah.
See what Schneider does.
Well, he does have any spell that doesn't involve the Raptor is pretty poor. But yeah, he's mostly drawing very
Mostly live, yeah. His attack for 5. Now there's a Thassa off of the top, and that's the card that you said he kind of needed right now.
Yeah, even if mono black has a lot of removal, you get to have your spots where you turn Thassa on for a turn and connect. And the quality of selection it gives your draws over time is really good as well. So that's a really important tool for beating mono black.
Swamp to start the turn for Jose. 3 mana. Maybe Hero's Downfall makes something go away. Looks like that's what he wants to cast, and he is going to take down the Raptor. Okay.
Yeah, taking down the Raptor there means that Andrew finding Night Veil Spectre doesn't turn on Thassa, but.
See the Scry, immediately Island on top. Jace going to come into play. Jace is going to tick. Which way are you going to tick, JC Poo? It's going to go down. So, 3 cards coming off the top for Schneider. A Thassa, an Island, and a Thassa. That might be the worst 3 he could have turned over there. So split 2 gods versus an island, and all right, Jace was a very expensive island, but 2 Thassas are now out of the way. 2 away from Devotion, and that Frog Lizard can come in and across for 3, excuse me. Videl Ross going to go down to 5, maybe to 4. The answer is yes from the connections.
Yeah, he has a Green Merchant in hand, so digging for lands, and he can make up some of the life lost this turn.
Another Grey Merchant drawn. What you don't have is a 5th land right now for Videl Ross, it looks like. Oh, it is, but it's a Temple of Deceit. Schneider gives a thumbs up, saying that's A-okay to me.
And Jose can really start powering out of this with his Grey Merchants, assuming that next turn isn't too bad for him.
Yeah. Assuming he doesn't die, but I think it's very realistic that he does die in the next turn.
Yeah. Does he lack a removal spell for the Frog?
It looks like he does. I know he's got a Nightveil Spectre, Desecration Demon, and 2 Grey Merchants in the hand. So he could certainly play Desecration Demon, and I think it would be good.
Yep.
It would cause the problems that card often causes, this tension. Am I supposed to sacrifice or not? But and he's going to play the 6/6. I thought he might play the Spectre. The 6/6 is going to come into play and pass the turn back.
I think he was considering Night Veil Spectre. I might have preferred to actually play it that turn, unless he's just looking to race, as neither creature really matters too much in the face of Thassa making things unblockable, but it is an additional devotion for his Grey Merchants in subsequent turns.
It makes an additional life loss for Schneider.
But Jose may be looking to race, and if Andrew's not willing to fight over this demon, then it can actually be very good for him to have those, to have demon in play this turn instead of Night Veil Spectre.
Master of Waves going to come off the top here for Schneider. So devotion check, 2, 3, 4. So 4 elementals are going to come into play. There are your water horsies. Now those, of course, can't attack yet this turn. I want to see how he wants to use Jace, too.
I mean, this turn he can pin down the demon with one of the tokens, and then it puts Jose in a position where he needs to answer both the frog and the Master of Waves.
That's exactly what he's going to do. Jace goes up. Sacrifice an elemental. Get in for 3. Videl Ross is going to go down to 1. See, the life total is now 20-1 in favor of Schneider. He's going to play his island. Hand is empty. Everything's on the board past the turn back. An untap here for Videl Ross. A draw step. He does have access to Grey Merchant now, but will Grey Merchant actually get him out of this situation? I'm not sure that it does.
Well, it gains him 6 and moves him to 7, and then, if Andrew has a way to turn on Thassa, it's lethal. May actually just be lethal on board.
Yeah, I think if Thassa gets turned on next turn, it might be over, because I guess he can sacrifice something. And I think, okay, so he's going to sacrifice on his turn. So no attacks allowed. Schneider going to untap. He'll take a scry here to start on his upkeep. That one, he's not sure of. Needs to do some math here.
Yeah, he can simply make the frog unblockable, and then there's only 1 block available to him, so it's 7.
So you push 3 through, and then anything that gets blocked, he
has 1 blocker, so it's exact 7.
Yep. You see him kind of going through the motions right now to make sure he doesn't miss anything. So yeah, if he does make it unblockable, he's going to put the top card to the bottom, take a draw. See if he finds the piece to the puzzle. Jace's going to tick down. So hit 1, 2, 3. Tidebinder Mage Justice familiar. He says, I'll take Tidebinder Mage no matter what. Turn on my Thassa, make Thassa unblockable. Turns out he doesn't actually need to do this, as you did mention, because Thassa doesn't actually need to attack in the equation. But we'll make Thassa unblockable, make the frog unblockable, attack for 8. And that is going to do it. So Andrew Schneider is going to win game number 1 here over Jose Videl Ross. Mono Blue Devotion, up 8 game over Mono Black Devotion. For those of you keeping track at home, that's 0-9 in games played for Mono Black Devotion.
It's been rough on camera so far.
Owen, where are you?
It's been really rough so far for Mono Black on camera.
They can't buy a game right now. It is ugly out here in Orlando. Take a look at the sideboards here. Hey, we'll go to Mono Black. You've got it in front of you. I bet it's very familiar.
Yeah, it's basically, very close to Owen's sideboard. There's 2 Freakish Cures in the board, 0 in the main, so he only has the ability to go up to the 2. 2 additional copies of Erebos, 3 Lifebane Zombie, 4 Dark Betrayal, 4 Duress. I know that Owen is a big advocate of bringing in Lifebane Zombie in the matchup because the information's valuable, and the matchup is basically a damage race, so I'd expect those to come in, and probably the Freakish Cures as well, removing something like 4 copies of Thoughtseize and the Erebos, I think, is where I would go.
For Schneider's side of things, he's got an additional Nykthos in the sideboard, a Ratchet Bomb, an additional Rapid Hybridization, additional Cyclonic Rift. There's a lot of 1-0s over here, by the way. A Dissolve, an additional Jason, additional Biden, to go along with 2 Negates, 3 Gainsays, and 3 Domestications. Pretty run-of-the-mill sideboard nowadays. The Mono Blue only has so many options.
Right. The critical ones are the Jason, the Biden. The Mono Blue deck converts into more of a nickel and dime card drawing deck, and the post-board games against Mono Black to assist in slogging through all of this removal. So you get more reliable devotion enablers, especially with Bident, which the Mono Black deck basically can't get off the table, and Jace as well, to make Thassa more powerful and to prevent the extent to which you are leaning on individual creatures and curving out, because the Mono Black deck's pretty good at breaking that sort of thing up.
Now, you mentioned a little bit when we were talking about Mono Black Devotion at the top of the show and the best ways to try to go about beating it, and it's either one, get under it as fast as you can, which Schneider did a nice job of that game, or draw more cards in it and make its, Underworld Connections and Erebos kind of obsolete, which he kind of did that game with Jace, and he can certainly do with Biden.
Yeah, and Thassa was a big part of that equation too. I mean, that allowed him to do both things. It gave him something resembling card advantage, or at least card selection, and also added to his clock. Even though it only attacked that last turn, Jose still had to play around Thassa getting turned on at various spots. For example, he killed a Cloudfin Raptor in lieu of killing the Frog token because he was worried about the Devotion count. That was extra points of damage that added up on Andrew's side of the table. So that's a big part of that.
It kind of begs the question. I know a lot of the time we always kind of look at tournaments and finishes and things of that nature, and we see Mono Black hoisting the trophy more often than not. Owen Turnwald beating Sam Pardee in the finals at Albuquerque, Max Brown beating Greg Hatch in the finals of the Invitational in Las Vegas. Who's better off in this matchup? It always seems like whoever wins the game, whenever a game is won, it always seems like the person who's winning kind of wins in just kind of a lopsided affair. It doesn't ever really feel like it's back and forth. We saw that game with Mono Blue. It's like Jose was trying to get some sort of footing, was just never able to. In other games, we just see Mono Black just go, kill your guy, play a pack wreck, kill your guy, you're dead, and it's just over.
Yeah, most decks that are Devotion themed by their nature are going to be a lot about playing onto the board, and when both decks are like that, the games are likely to be pretty lopsided, especially because the decks are both so powerful once they actually have their stuff set up online. You're Gray Merchanting for a bunch, or you're Thossing, or what have you.
It's also a little unique to me that the two best Devotion decks in Mono Blue and Mono Black really don't have to play Nykthos. Turnwald's list doesn't, and Jose's here playing very close to Turnwald's doesn't play it. And then Schneider does have one in his main and one in his board, but oftentimes you might find one in the 75, or a lot of the times none.
Yeah, and that was definitely the card that was assumed that if there were going to be Devotion decks upon the release of Theros, that card was going to be involved. And we've seen Mono Red and Mono Green Devotion decks, which are absolutely Nykthos decks, first and foremost. But here it's, Devotion's a really open-ended way of describing a deck. It means they want to have permanence in play. That can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah. Again, if you guys are just joining us at home, we do appreciate it. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Star City Games Open Series here in Orlando, Florida. Your tweets, join us on Twitter. Come on, do it. We got to find things to talk about. At SCG Live, hashtag SCGORL, as we're in round 5 of 10 here. Andrew Schneider, 2-time Open Series champions on your left. Mono Blue Devotion off to a nice start this weekend, 4-0. Mono Blue's not dead yet, trust me.
And it looks as though Andrew has drawn up a hand here of Jose is going to take a mulligan here. Andrew is contemplating a hand of a Raptor, 2 Master of Waves, and 4 Islands.
Maybe a mulligan?
I think that this is probably a mulligan. I think the fact that Jose has mulligan means Andrew's more inclined to keep. Trading card for card with, Mono Black trades card for card so much that when they mulligan, you open up the range of your keepable hands because it's more likely they can't trade 1 for 1 with you. And also, if you mulligan, now they're at card parity again. So I think that if Jose had kept 7, Andrew probably has the mulligan, but he can keep now that Jose himself is mulliganed.
Some people are deeming our feature match area the destroyer of Mono Black Devotion.
Well, on the heels of last weekend, that wouldn't be a bad thing. It has been a bloodbath thus far.
6 cards, among them Devour Flesh, and it looks like Jose is happy enough to keep this. And there's a swamp. Now let's see what you're working with. Raptor, Master, lands.
So this hand in some ways is better than the one that I described insofar as Andrew drawing any reasonable creatures in the next couple of turns will give him a lot of pressure. In some ways it's worse insofar as he has 2/0/1 flyers and a 4-mana card is.
Yeah, yes.
This hand is really susceptible, of course, to Andrew drawing poorly for the next 2 or 3 turns, but also could be quite explosive.
Cyclonic Rift, Brick, number 1.
It's not one of them.
Yep. And this this is something that could definitely happen here, where just bricks do come off the top of the deck. And it looks like Jose has multiple copies of Devour Flesh in his hand, so he can really make things get really awkward here. Mutavault the draw. That would be brick number 2.
Well, it's actually not terrible for Andrew, for Jose to have Devour Flushes, since he has these Raptors that don't do anything anyway.
Sure. Devour Flesh number 1. Get that Raptor out of here. Give Schneider a life. as Jose will untap. He'll take a draw. We'll see what he does find on this turn. Underworld Connections is the draw. Does have a third land, too, so he's doing okay on his mulligan.
The Underworld Connections is really good here. He needs to start pulling ahead on cards now.
Especially where you have you've thought seized your opponent. They know they don't really have very much, so it's safe to get connections onto the board, which is what exactly what Videl Ross is going to do and pass the turn back as Dissolve is the draw. Would you say that that's brick number 3?
Yeah, although it's not terrible to have here as the pace of the game is pretty slow, but definitely these Raptors have not looked good thus far, that's for sure.
And activation here of Underworld Connections from Videl Ross. Underworld Connections comes to the grip. What he wants to do is draw lands right now. Devour Flesh says, can I get rid of this Cloudfin Raptor? Schneider says, okay, that's fine. But no land here. And now Cyclonic Rift is going to bounce the connections. And we'll see if Schneider can get some footing here. As he takes a draw to Judge's Familiar, allows him to leave up Dissolve.
Bang.
Yeah. Right back in it as there's a Mutavault. And I think we're going to see it dissolve very quickly here on this connections.
Yeah. Jose is probably a little curious why he didn't attack with Mutavault last turn. Signals possibly negate, dissolve a couple different counters that Andrew could have here.
Yeah, you got to feel a counterspell coming on. There is your counterspell. So connections is going to get taken care of. Time for a scry from Schneider. Schneider immediately puts that top card to the bottom.
So let's see if Andrew can find one of his high impact cards here.
He draws a Rapid Hybridization. Mutavault's going to get active, attack for 3. So Videl Ross is going to go down to 14. Just cobbling together some damage here is Schneider, as Videl Ross is going to take a draw step. It's a Temple of Deceit. He'll start by scrying.
And for as anemic as Andrew's start has been, Jose's hand is a lot of, it's a lot of things that deal damage to himself and just slow card drawing. He does have Whip of Erebos plus Mutavault, so he can start racing back that way, but he can't really develop his board too much.
That's kind of a rough spot, too, because I think Whip is far and away the best card in his hand, and he's probably a little bit scared to deploy that as a threat when he just saw Dissolve, and so he's got to assume, all right, well, Thunder's not really doing anything, so he's probably got more counter magic in his hand, but the truth is that he doesn't.
Yeah, there's also the question of, can I win this game just by playing Whip and racing with Mutavaults? It's possible that Andrew can overpower that, and then the leftovers in Jose's hand is not very good. It's just more card drawing. It's going to take him a little while to get that online. I think if Jose had some removal spells in his hand, you might have seen him actually play Whip that turn. But he feels like he needs to get a better base before he can go and get Whip online and start racing with those Mutavaults.
Mutavault plus Judge's Familiar into the red zone again. And I'm going to follow up with a Night Veil Spectre. So Videl Ross is going to go down to 11. Let's make it 10 after a Connections activation. And now there's enough pressure on the board that he needs to find something to do.
Yeah, and Jose also got rewarded that turn for playing the Underworld Connections, as if he had played the Whip with the intent of racing with those Mutavaults, this Night Veil Spectre would have been a disaster.
So once we do get our life total up to speed here, I believe Videl Ross will be at 10. And Schneider at 22. We'll see what else does happen here. There's a Night Veil Spectre from Videl Ross. He just passes the turn back, trying to set up a larger Gray Merchant. This is a Rapid Hybridization, so get that thing right out of the way. Let those flyers keep trucking on in. In for 3. Going to put Videl Ross down to 7. And a Night Veil Spectre trigger coming. See what he can find. It's a Dark Betrayal, which is actually not so bad if he can find a swamp.
That's one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. A second Mutavault there from Schneider, so even though it is a land, it's a land that can attack, as Videl Ross is going to go down to 6 from Connections. He'll untap. He'll take a draw. It's a Hero's Downfall, a very expensive removal spell right now.
Yeah, and Jose's hand's just a little unwieldy. It's not short on power, but it is not smooth, that's for sure. And, even though playing Gray Merchant here is pretty good, there is a risk of Andrew finding a swamp off of that Night Veil Spectre and the tempo swing being really bad for Jose, so he's just going to use Hero's Downfall instead.
So Downfall is going to take care of the Spectre. No more free cards for Mr. Schneider. And now, if you're Videl Ross, your opponent has no cards in the hand, got just a lonely 1/1 flyer, 2 Mutavaults. See what Schneider can find.
And Jose just wants to be able to stick that Great Merchant or that whip on a stable board.
Yeah.
That's all he's fighting towards right now.
Going to go down to 4. A little risky. But 4 is not 0, so Videl Ross will take a draw. Draws a Nightfell Spectre and then a Swamp. Nightfell Spectre, pretty good draw right now.
Yep. Doesn't quite have enough mana to play Merchant and Spectre, but he can play, for example, Spectre and Whip and attack with his 3/3.
Which you got to like a lot.
Yeah, that seems like a really good turn right now.
Follow that up with the Gray Merchant, assuming both of those things resolve.
Correct, yeah. You build up your board, you gain some life this turn.
Nightfell Spectre, Schneider looks at his hand, he says, that's fine. Now there's your whip. Is that fine? Duchess Familiar, you can't counter that.
Really good turn for Jose here.
And I think, again, as you mentioned, I think you do get in with the 3/3. I suppose I'm trying to figure out what can go wrong.
Well, it depends if you don't want to trade it with one of the Mutavaults, because Andrew can double block.
I'd love a trade, though. I'd love a trade in 3 life there.
Yeah, especially, you've also seen Cyclonic Rift out of Andrew's deck. If he overloads a Cyclonic Rift here, it's really bad. So get in while the getting's good.
And that's what he's going to do. Videl Ross going to come across with the Frog Lizard that does have a lifelink now. Mutavaults, they're on guard duty. But more importantly for Videl Ross, that 4 turns into a 7.
Yes.
And he'll pass the turn back. So Schneider's going to untap. He's going to draw. There's a Mutavault among those lands, which is Duchess Familiar. And there's an Island and a Mystery Blue card, which is a Tidebinder Mage, which is just a Grizzly Bear right now. Yeah. Kind of awkward, where if he doesn't double block, he could have actually tapped down the Frog Lizard being green and all, but you can't really see that coming.
Yeah, he had to. I think Andrew's block last turn was correct. He's just not. This is an unfortunate turn of events for him here.
Well, it's only going to get worse before it gets better, because it looks like it's Gray Merchant time. Well, we thought it might be.
And this is for 9 right now?
This is for 9.
That's a lot. 9 is a lot.
9 is a big number. That 7 turns into a 16. And all of a sudden, a game in which Andrew Schneider looked like he may win to give Mono Black its 10th game loss on camera. Andrew Schneider, you let us down.
Yep.
Island going to go over there. Checking to make sure, did I lay a land or not?
He has not played a land because last turn he tapped out for 7 mana's worth of cards. So he's good.
And they do double check that. They come to the same decision. He did not play a land. Pass that turn back. Schneider going to draw. He'll play an Island. And even at this point, an Overloaded Cyclonic Rift, not so good.
Oh yeah, we've lost that opportunity.
So Videl Ross is going to untap. He'll draw. How about another Gray Merchant? How about this game is over? So, Mono Black Devotion, welcome to the Game Win Club.
Right.
You've gotten
You're
a
on the
game
board.
on camera. Congratulations, Jose Videl Ross, being the pilot to be able to get that done. But you're not out of the woods yet. You still have to get a match on camera. And you see both players are going to go back to their sideboard here to prepare for game number 3. But again, it's kind of that situation, right, where when the Devotion decks win, they certainly do look impressive doing so.
Yeah, I mean, you get the 5/5 indestructible, unblockable card selection machine for 3 mana, where you're making 8 tokens with Master of Waves, or you're Gray Merchanting for 10. Once you have your board established, your payoffs are quite good.
Yeah.
And Andrew, in that game, we talk a lot about the blue versus black matchup. It's a really prevalent one in Standard, of course. The blue deck is really relying on either getting a really fast beatdown draw, which it doesn't really get that often, or having its card advantage 4 mana cards and Thassa's to grind through the black deck's removal. Andrew got neither of those online in that game, and Jose was able to fend off pretty easily just the random creatures that Andrew was playing. Andrew, of course, also had a pretty anemic start with 2 Cloudfin Raptors that never grew, and that did not help matters either.
I agree. It was just, maybe a sketchy heap. I'm not really quite sure. When you're playing against like that, it's Thoughtseize and you're on the draw. Maybe you want to mulligan into a better hand, but it's certainly debatable.
Yeah, Andrew's just relying on him having, basically 1 creature drawn in a reasonable time frame. He's got a pretty good hand there, but he drew Cyclonic Rift and a couple lands, and just never got anything going until it was too late. felt like there was a chance that he could finish off that game, and if he had drawn a Bident there was a couple turn window where that could have swung the game around. But
And we're looking at a much different game then.
he was neither fast nor drew any of his high-end back cards, and Jose was able to take him down.
I was hoping you were going to say furious. Neither fast nor furious, but
That would have been not a terrible spot to stick that one, I guess. It would have been okay.
let's fire it off next time.
Yeah.
Get
He
in
was
there.
Neither fast nor furious.
There you go.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. Thank
That
you.
was actually pretty good.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you throwing me a bone there.
Although furious doesn't really, I mean, contextually it's not the right word.
Well, sure.
But, any Fast and Furious reference, I guess you just had to,
There you go. See, now
You
you
gotta get
understand it. You got to get it in when you can.
just got to get in while it gets
It's not
good.
every day that you can really slide a Fast and Furious reference in and it being okay.
Right.
Take a look at both players looking at their 7 cards. Videl Ross will be on the draw. Schneider will be on the play. Again, round number 5 here. Schneider, he's happy enough. We're underway. No 1-drop. No Familiar. No Raptor. Videl Ross. Oh, he's got a 1-drop. You see Schneider ready to show you? All right, here's my spells. Here's my lands. He's
Oof.
kept land heavy hands, but to be fair, both these spells are actually okay.
Yeah. This is not, again, this is just another hand like the last one that's on the fence on whether or not you can keep it.
Yeah.
And when you have hands like that, Thoughtseize is, and both of them were land-heavy hands on the side of mulliganing, Thoughtseize is a disaster for those kind of hands.
Spectre, obviously a good card in this sort of matchup. Don't know if it forces you to keep a hand, but it's the kind of card that turns on Thassa, makes Master of Waves good, all of that stuff. Going to pass the turn back is Schneider. Has to play an island, can't afford to play Mutavault because he wants the Spectre into play turn 3, so there's that kind of tension, obviously, with what he can do.
And I mean, part of the problem is that Andrew's drawn a lot of reactive cards. His draw for that turn was Rapid Hybridization. He drew a Cyclonic Rift in the last game when he was really looking for a creature to go along with his Cloudfin Raptors. He's been short of, threat density has been a real issue for him in these games so far post-board.
There's a Mutavault. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, boy. There's a Pack Rat. Rapid Hybridization is going to get that thing out of here right now. Of course, knowing that his mana is tied up for next turn because he's got the Night Veil Spectre, which he will deploy now. As Schneider has drawn another land for his draw step. So he's got Mutavault and 2 islands. So not the best draw for the Mono Blue Devotion players. Videl Ross is going to untap. He'll draw. He's going to start by attacking for 3. Put Schneider down to 17. See if he wants to get this Spectre off the board. He's got a Devour Flesh over there. And he will right now. That could have went badly if he waited.
Yes.
Because Schneider has the Mutavault. Here's a Temple of Deceit.
Wisely main phases.
Yes. Just because they're instants doesn't mean they have to be cast as such.
And now Andrew, with nothing in his hand, behind on the board. Jose with the connections and removal spells in hand. Andrew's going to have to draw really well. And basically has to start with Thassa.
I was going to say, that's where it starts. It starts with Thassa, and then Thassa can just kind of make it snowball from there. It's going to take some work, but let's see if we're waiting for anything in particular here. Okay, there we are. Pass the turn back. Yep. Take a draw. Yep, and there's exactly what you mentioned.
Another reactive card. Another card that's predicated on him having pressure already.
And this is a decent use of Cyclonic Rift, but again, it's not an exciting use. It's just like, okay, I have to bounce your guy, which is annoying, but okay, let's do it. Now here's a Thoughtseize, so it's like, okay, I took 3 damage when I didn't need to, but obviously, you're not going to see the Thoughtseize coming. As here's 2 lands from Schneider. If you're Videl Ross, you're kind of pumping the fist here. As there's a Mutavault that's going to be put into play. And Underworld Connections actually cannot be cast, which Schneider immediately saw. Because you've only got 1 swamp there, so that's going to stay in your hand. So he's got a Devour Flesh. He's got a connection that he can't cast until next turn.
But he's not facing any pressure, which
no.
Jose's kept in a lot of discard in his hand. I believe the judge is resolving the situation here.
So it's backed up, and now. Yeah, we're in the.
Yeah, you already attacked.
He already
with the frog.
attacked. Yeah, so might have a warning issued or something here, but I'm gonna untap, gonna take a draw step. Yeah, and he did get a warning for that. Gonna play an Island Will Schneider. He's gonna attack with a Mutavault. Mutavaults are gonna trade off. Videl Ross is going to untap.
Keeps his Devour Flesh as insurance against
A real card,
yeah.
basically. There's a Swamp, and now he can play Underworld Connections. Pass the turn back. So there's a Cloudfin Raptor. Take a draw.
And Andrew has just not been able to get really any pressure going in the right time frame in these in games 2 and 3 thus far.
And draw another card. So let's see, anything here for Videl Ross to do? He's got a couple of lands, got the Devour Flesh over there. He just hasn't found a way to actually win the game. You know, the Mutavault will certainly get the ball rolling. The Schneider's going to go down to 15. So you can cast Devour Flesh to take care of the Raptor. But again, if you're Schneider right now, you're actually, like, you're not in the worst shape in the world, but you have to find Thassa.
Yeah.
There's an island past the turn back, and that is not Thassa. So now Underworld Connections is going to get to see more cards. Draw a card, Videl Ross going to go down to 13 to do so. And now there's a way to win the game.
All right, Desecration Demon, that qualifies.
That's pretty much all I needed, is just some sort of threat to win the game with. Going to play a Swamp and the Demon past the turn back. Schneider's going to draw a card. He'll play an island, pass it back. Some very bad flooding here for the Mono Blue Devotion player.
Well, besides that, he's also, he kept land-heavy hands that were, action light. He's drawn a lot of reactive cards in these post-board games, so, his land to spell ratio has definitely not been favorable for him, but the spells he did draw were also just low impact.
Also, there's one thing to keep in mind, and it's, something I always think about when I think of Jerry Thompson, what he's taught me about Magic. Mulliganing is not a punishment, it is a choice.
Right.
Was that a great keep by Schneider of Frostburn, Weird, Nightfall Spectre lands against a deck that has a lot of removal? Well, that's arguable. I mean, I think that Thassa is so important in this matchup. Maybe you mulligan for that card. I don't know, but either way, Schneider's going to extend the hand, and Jose Videl Ross is going to win this match. 2 games to 1. Mono Black is off the Schneid.